right. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh, everybody. Sorry about that. I don't know what is going on with YouTube and my sound. That was a lead in for our talk today, our discussion topic, if you will. I'm going to just have to work through it. So forgive me for that. I really thought that was some really good information that we're talking about, but they were really talking about the aspect of health disparity as applicable to mental health, and I will rehash what was said in that interview. But before I go there, let me formally welcome everybody. We got people in the booth. All my all my shout out show family going, I don't have no sound. Forgive me, people. It's not a perfect science. Sometimes I get a little bit arrogant, thinking I know everything, and I don't know everything. I'm trying to figure it out. But make the why for me that I'll smooth that out somewhere along the line. And, new computer, things like that. And it may be a thing that maybe YouTube is just not giving me the sound I need. Who knows? YouTube, Facebook, they all have their own agendas, and some of them they're not. We're information entertainment platform, so maybe they don't want us to give out the information. Allah knows best. If you're coming on the show for the first time, thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate you. But let me break a few things down for you. When you come on the Shout Out Show, yes, I'm Preacher Master host, but I'm not Preacher Master owner of this platform. This is a people first platform, meaning that we're going to have a discussion. We're going to have a communal understanding of things. Yes, I'm going to talk, but I'm not talking at people. I'm talking with people through this medium that we call the internet and live streaming and all those type of things. Today's topic is extremely important. So I'm going to lean on everybody in the comment section, people that come on the show, people that watch the show, maybe don't necessarily get in the comment section, to let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're feeling. I'm gonna lay a little bit of groundwork before we go into the whole aspect of mental health in terms of minority communities or underrepresented communities. But I want to really lay the whole thing out. I have some things I want to say about mental health. They're not particularly absolute. I'm giving an opinion. In some regards, I'm giving you a bit of a spectrum about how I grew up feeling about mental health. It was a very dissociative relationship. You were either really, really healthy or you were crazy. So that depression, we didn't really deal with depression. So before we get started, anybody that's coming on the show, don't be a stranger. Don't act shy. Get in the comment section. Give us your comment. We appreciate you. It's called a shout out. That's why it's called the Shout Out Show. I welcome comments and I comment on comments. So there's your invitation. And if you don't mind, click the subscription button, notification button. And if you like the show, click the like button. Let me show you an aspect or a very, very important feature of being part of the Shout Out Show. That's the Shout Out Show family. The people I'm going to run through, I introduce them every day, and I'm blessed to do so. So right up front, we got Sister Ree, always giving greetings and salutations. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Sister Ree. She is the craft services person. Let me shout out Sister Ree. Yesterday, Sister Ree surprised me with some turkey Salisbury steak, and I'm here to tell you, it was absolutely amazing. I mean, at the end, I need to make a janaza for it because it was gone. It was gone to another place, my stomach. But I appreciate you again, Sister Ree, and big ups. We're going to do that show. How would you guys feel about if we had like a little feature with Sister Ree where she cooks something like once a week and she tells us how she cooks it and she shows it to everybody, and we bring on the show, she shows it to everybody, and as a result, I get to eat it, and I'll report back on it later. Got to have a plug for yourself. So listen, thank you, Sister Ree. I appreciate that meal was scrumptious yesterday. And our consultant producer, Miss Sultana Whitfield, my right hand, my wing sister, she makes sure everything works. Do not blame her for the sound. This is me. I'm having an ongoing situation with the sound, so forgive me. I'm trying to make it work, but again, it's not a perfect science. But I'm going to tell you something. When I figure it out, the show is going to be absolutely amazing. I'm going to do amazing things with the sound. All right? So that part we have. So let me also go down. Sister Aika. Sister Aika's still out in Jakarta. Big ups to Sister Aika. No, not Jakarta. She's in Indonesia, but lives outside of Jakarta. And we have Sister Jasmine, who's coming all the way from the UK. What's going on, Sister Jasmine? Representing the best of working in nonprofits and charitable work with Islamic help. I suggest anybody who wants to donate, just go check out what they're doing with Islamic help. Sister Yasmin has been at the forefront for many years, and God bless you. I hope you're able to stay there. Okay. And this is my main man. This is Johnny L. Thomas, better known as JT, my little brother. Man, thank you so much for coming on the show, Jay. You know, we're due for a phone call, just a brother phone call. But I just want to, and I'm glad you're on the show, you know, because this is stuff we can talk about as well. I just want everybody to know this is a very, very clean topic. You know, sometimes when we talk about mental health, people get into their spaces and their feelings. And it's not about just getting into your space. Your feelings, you're entitled to that. What I'm talking about is having a general and a well-meaning conversation about aspects of mental health. You know, we have dirigibles, if you will, in the Muslim community. We have dirigibles in the African American and minority communities, because when we talk about mental health, it is so much. You know, a word that gets tossed around a lot is that we're traumatized people. So that idea of being traumatized, I'm gonna lay it out a little bit, and I'm gonna ask that you guys give me a little leeway. A little leeway. I'm not saying let me do everything I want, but give me a little leeway, and then I'm gonna give you a little leeway to talk about some of the things that you think about mental health. And this is a point for all of us. We can just be brave and talk about it. All right. So yeah, that's right. Sister Reed would be delighted to do that show. I think we can make it a segment once a week. I think that'd be fun. Brother Altaf Rashid, wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi barakatuh, my brother, all the way from Toronto. Altaf, my main man, I'm thank you for coming on the show, brother. We appreciate you as always, and your presence is always welcome. So, all the way from Toronto, that brother seems to make it from 6 o'clock to 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, and we appreciate you for it, and we're a better show. Yeah, and our sponsors, check them. It's Maxine K. That sounds great, because Reed is an excellent cook. There you go, Reed. You gotta stand up. You gotta. What's the word? I can't remember. See how your mind goes. I want to talk about that too. I don't want to say recommendation. What's the word I'm looking for, Satana? Yeah, when you and this has happened to me. This has happened to me way too many times. So I'm going to tell you guys where I'm coming from. It's not confirmation. It's not a recommendation. Testimonial. There you go. There you go, Reed. You got a testimonial from Aunt Maxine. You got a testimonial from me. Just look at all the people saying it'd be a great idea. A food segment from Reed, that'd be a great idea. Thank you. Sister Jasmine even gave you a thumbs up all the way from the UK. What shows do that, brothers? This is this show, and I appreciate you. So I titled this Mo Better Mondays, Mental Health, a checkup from the neck up. The reason I realized that is because probably one of the most depressing days in the week is probably Monday. You've been off pretty much Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I mean, you went into work Friday, but you weren't there all the way there. But Saturday, you were totally in tune to what you wanted to do. And, of course, Sunday, you were totally in tune to what you wanted to do. And you spent the last part of Sunday dreading going back to work. That's Monday. We used to call it Melancholy Monday back in the day. But that's not my point. I started looking at this whole idea of mental health, and I call this More Better Monday because I think we need to have this understanding. Going into times and periods where we may not feel particularly at our best, we may be a little down, and we may be depressed. You have to use the word depressed. We may be depressed. We live in very, very conflicting times. We really live in times that affirm a lot of things that are negative about our society, and sadly that are negative about people in our society whom we may have thought were good people, who were stand-up folks. So we got some more comments there, Ree. There you go, witness, Ree. All right. But this thing came out, and it was an article. If you go to CNN.com, there's a section there where they're talking about the long-term effects of COVID. Okay? Now, let me break this down. The long-term effects of COVID in this space was defined as something that's called long COVID, where they're finding out through research that people are having issues, health-related issues, with COVID almost 6 to 9 months after people who have been infected with COVID. They're having issues with chronic fatigue. I just demonstrated from you a little brain fog. You know, I'm going, I know these words, but why can't I do it? I had COVID back in 2020, late January 2020. And I still have some physical issues that I deal with. I get a lot more little knick-knack injuries, if you will, and I still. My memory is not as sharp as it was some regards, and of course, physically, I'm not doing as much as I used to do. Part of that is, I'm not gonna give it all to COVID. Part of that is I'm an old Negro, so I'm gonna call that out too. Um, but the idea of long COVID is important because they're beginning to develop clinics now and support groups for people who've had COVID and dealing with the long-term effects of COVID. You remember in one of my rants a while ago about protecting students and protecting teachers, I said one of the things that really upset me and worried me, honestly, was the fact that we were going to be sending children and teachers into situations where obviously there's a danger of COVID, and people saying that the youth were like quickly going to be rebounding. Like, but we don't know the long-term effects. Now we're beginning to see the long-term effects of COVID. But one of the longer effects is the pressure. The pressure. The constant, I want to say, negotiation, the constant actualization that we're living in a society. 2020 was a very, very rough year. I mean, absence war, absence terrorism, we lived in a health-induced, in many regards, depression. And some of us, we can be honest, we went through phases. Now, how you deal with, crisis and things like that, if you get down, if you get depressed is not a bad word. Depression is not a bad word. It's about human emotion. And I'd be remiss to say that all our human emotions are always on high, or we don't have doubts, or we don't have things that happen around us that alter how we feel about ourselves and other people, or even how we feel about our country. Or, let me say this, even how we feel about ourselves. I have a situation in my family where a dear family member, has had an issue with long-term health, had long-term health issues. And, in speaking, and it's my mom, she's on the show, I'm not gonna lie. My mom has had and I had to talk about being grateful, because sometimes when her body is up, we can have a lot of fun, and the body is down. As a young man, I'm not young as I used to be, but I have to sit and I have to watch my mom recuperate and recover. And my aunts had to do that. I would say that my mom's health has been the extra family member. Sometimes that family member is a good family member. Sometimes that family member is a lousy relative. But we have to deal with it. And, the defining event is sometimes that when we look at our loved ones, or people we care about, or people we may even be in contrast with, we may be arguing with these people, sometimes the emotion that they show and the health that they show, whether we want to admit it or not, sometimes that's just the best that they could do. That's just the best that they could do. And with that, the whole idea about mental health, a checkup from the neck up, is, I come from a society and even a religion that has not spent a lot of time understanding and doing a proper evaluation of mental health. African Americans, Muslims were amongst the most traumatized people here in the United States. Here in the United States. And I'm a victim. I'm a victim like everybody else. It hasn't been this smooth transition to get from point A to point B. You're going to have ups and downs. My brother JT is on here. He can attest to when I was up and when I was down. Even when I was down, I tried to stay up. But you know what? The honest emotion is like, man, what am I going to do next? And I'm going to be honest, particularly as an African American man, to say something like, I need to seek mental health consultation or see a therapist, in many regards, it was seen as being weak, sissified, man up. And in that, brothers and sisters, the mistake is we compensated, or we try to overcompensate by trying to be quote-unquote men, but at the same time not being responsible, and accountable. And that same philosophy of not dealing with the things inside of us that hurt led us to do other things that hurt other people as well as hurt us. You talk about drugs, you talk about alcoholism, you talk about domestic abuse. These are outgrowths of how people feel. These are outgrowths of the complexity and the conflict that people are carrying around day in, day out. And it's unresolved. I sadly regret I was on a business trip, and the guy talked about he suffered from depression. I was like, okay, I get that. And he said he was getting mental health assistance. I said, that's cool. And I belittled the guy. I said, well, wait a minute, you're doing all this, but then you're drinking. And I was like, yo, you're drinking. Like, that's a depressant, And I should have excused myself. I said, because you never really even know what level that man is speaking about in his life. And I never got to apologize to the guy. We were on a business trip, But that's the arrogance. And I claim ignorance, and I ask, wherever that man is, that you forgive me. That you forgive me. Because that's the way I was brought up. We don't talk about pain. We don't talk about trauma as much as we should. And what happens is it carries over to our relationships, our families, our jobs, our hopes, our aspirations. Hell, it carries over to our dreams. I talked about the long COVID. But this is the thing before COVID. This is the COVID before COVID. Beginning to look at the things that hurt us is a trust, if you will. A trust to be able to take to your family members. A trust to be able to take to a therapist. And the reason it's a trust is because you want to make sure that you're not hurting other people. That the solutions that may come out of a therapy session, or the solutions that may come out of just an honest conversation about how you're feeling, that may lead you to get the help that you need, it can't be absent anymore. There's a quote from Fannie Lou Hamer from the Civil Rights movement. Famous quote. It was almost like I paraphrase. I say it wrong. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I thought about this black woman in the middle of the Civil Rights era carrying on this immense burden to liberate a people. To liberate a people. Like, I can't really fathom what my parents went through, what my aunt went through, what my uncles went through when there was no civil rights movement, when you had segregated housing, you had Jim Crow. You woke up going to a school, and the school you were going to was a school that was inferior to the school down the road. And that was life. And people could destroy your hopes and dreams because the law allowed them to do that. And in that, there was a void where people could heal themselves. That void was called church, but even church was compromised. Even church didn't have a component that said, wait a minute. God created happiness, God created sadness. So in between there, God created depression. Not for us to sit and wallow in it. But if you have a range of emotions, depression is one of them. And us being able to have an honest conversation, a truthful conversation with one another, without judging, without insulting, without being didactic, I'm saying, look at what this thing is. Because we have a generation of children right now who've seen the worst of humanity and seen the best of humanity. And we're leaving them at a very young age to make sense of it. Sister Jasmine said, we never read a manual on how to deal with emotion when we lose someone we love. Absolutely. Absolutely. Losing someone you love, losing something you love. I perform at the prisons when I get the opportunity. And the joy and the laughter that comes from doing the shows, it's not I'm that funny. It's just that I've provided, in some regards, a release. And it's not a release about just the jokes, it's a release about communal laughter. That they can talk to somebody who's not incarcerated. They could talk to somebody who, in this situation, has options. And I'm demonstrating to them that one of my options was to come see you, just like other people do, that come in to the prisons for Eid, to visit, to deliver products and things like that, just for fellowship. Forget just comedy. I'm talking about people who are doing things to show that we care. And so I say the checkup from the neck up because, you know, we need this. I mean, I often often think of people or soldiers, if you will, that went to Vietnam, who went to war in Vietnam. And they went under the aspect that they were serving their country. They were patriots. And in between going to Vietnam and the end of Vietnam, somehow they became assessed with vitriol, assessed with condemnation, that they were people, soldiers who were doing the bidding of the United States, but at this point in time, there's a quotient of population in the United States that didn't agree with the bidding. And they bore the brunt of it. You know why? Because it's hard to argue against policy if you don't make the policy, if you're not a politician. And these guys went to war and they were ill prepared for this war. They were ill prepared for when they got over. They were ill prepared for the brutality of it. They were ill prepared for the amount of time they had to be over there. And they were ill prepared and they were ill informed about why they were there. And then they came back home and we said, hey, everybody gonna be all right. And it was the same thing for the Gulf War. Our soldiers went over and they still had the same consternation. But we came up with a term for it, post-traumatic stress syndrome. And I'm saying it's trauma. It's saying, hey, listen, I've gone through a situation, I've gone through a scenario, and I'm traumatized. There's no person in the world, no African American in the world is going to go, you know what? I'm in the United States, I've never been traumatized. It's in the DNA. It's in the DNA. Our history, despite all the progress, despite all the success, despite all the odds, has come through the filter of trauma. Like Sister Jasmine said, nobody ever read a manual on how to deal with emotion. I'm gonna go a little bit further, Sister Jasmine. I'm gonna borrow a little bit from. No one ever gave you a manual to deal with the emotions of having to fight to just be recognized as human. That you have value and an equitable understanding of yourself in creation. And the other part of that manual is when people are constantly trying to take that away from you. The pull, the give and take, it's scary. I watched something recently. A young man at a football camp with a pro football player named Cam Newton. And somehow this young man started berating Cam Newton like he was washed up. I mean, Cam Newton has done an amazing amount of things in professional football, made a lot of money, and here he is putting his stamp on the community going, I want to give back. And here's this kid berating him, disrespecting him in front of other people, other adults, in front of his teammates, talking about, you're a free agent, saying that basically you got fired. And this is a child. And Cam Newton started to go after him, and he stopped. He said, young man, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to your parents. Where are your parents? Where's your mom? Where's your dad? And this young man continued, not understanding that to even be in the professional football league as a black quarterback is the height of pressure. It's the height of trauma. There's a thing about professional sports, and I might have said it before, but I think it's really, really relevant right here. The thing about professional sports, and I say that it's the same thing about African Americans. I'm not disregarding anybody else, but in the United States, the mark of being African, like the mark of being African American, is the same as being an athlete. I think that's why there's such a close parallel between African Americans and sports. Let me explain. You see the balance, if you will, or the greater narrative of being a successful athlete in professional sports, basketball, especially football and things like that. The narrative is your value is framed by how well you're able to play with injury. How well you're able to play with injury. And of course, that's bodily injury for sports. But it's the same thing for people of color. It's the same thing for women. It's the same thing for people who are disabled. It's the same thing for the poor, which is not, I'm going to give you help. It's the thing, well, how well can you exist with this trauma? How well can you play with injury? My brothers and sisters, I'm a religious man. I'm not a scholar. I'm a religious man. When I explain religious means that, given right or wrong, I hope nine out of 10 times I'm gonna choose the right. And the time I choose the wrong, it won't be all wrong. I'll pump the brakes or something like that. But let me say something. As a believer, I believe my God is just. As a believer, I believe my God is wise. And as a believer, I believe my God does not want me to play with injury. And where does the injury come from? Literally, where does the injury come from? It comes from creation. It comes from society. People making decisions about me, you, themselves, and applying it almost like they're God. I won't make that injury. I won't make that argument. But let me say this. It comes a time, brothers and sisters, where we have to stop playing with injury. And we got to heal. All the great sports figures in my life had what? Injuries. How did they keep playing? Because at some point in time, they got the right people around them, doctors, physicians, who said, no, you need to heal. For us, in terms of mental health, sometimes you can't keep playing with injury. Sometimes you got to stop, brothers and sisters, and heal. Got something from Satana. What you got, Satana? Yeah. That's why Houston, Texas Mayor Turner told everyone to man up during an emergency. Yeah. Well, you have to tell me which mayor, because I read about a mayor over in Colorado City, Texas, who just put some incendiary stuff on Facebook. Took it down. I think he resigned. But his words were just totally out of context, But I'm going to make this point. I'm going to go. It's already 5:30. But I'm going to emphasize, brothers and sisters, that, also look for people who are suffering trauma and encourage them to heal in our families, in our workplaces, and in our personal relationships. Look for the signs. We talk about long COVID. What are the signs of long COVID people talking about? They're talking about chronic fatigue. They're talking about brain fog. They're talking about cognitive ability. They're talking about a lot of things. Well, guess what we're talking about? Some of the same things. When you're traumatized, you can't sit up here and make the same. You can't function the same. You can function for a while, but, not at the same intensity and not at the same efficacy, if you will. Yeah, Colorado City. I think I read some of his statements. That guy's nuts. You don't say that to people when they're struggling. He basically told people, it's on you. Well, how's it on me? How's it on me? I don't control the power grid and things like that. And that's off to the side because I don't want to conflate the issues. That's politics. That's politics. That's another level. But I'm talking about a human level, whereby we can honestly assess ourselves. And sometimes I have a very good friend, and I was surprised he told me he went to a therapist. See how I just said that? I was surprised because I thought he had it all together. I don't know. See how that is? It's the arrogance of it. So my thing is this. I'm sitting here going, really? You went to a therapist? He said, yeah, I've been going for years. And I said, was there anything wrong? He said, no. He said, man, it's just to check myself. He says, because sometimes I don't know when I'm healthy mentally, and sometimes I don't know when I'm a little off. And I thought to myself, I said, man, that's not crazy. That's intelligent. And so I'm going to embrace that idea that even all of us, we check in with one another. And don't be afraid if you're feeling not like yourself. If you're feeling a little down, if you're feeling a little off, recognize that in yourself and pursue help, pursue assistance. We don't know everything about the mental capacity. We have amazing thoughts, but sometimes we have thoughts that could be detrimental to things we want to do. We don't even know they're there. So my point, as Sister Jasmine said, we don't have the manual about our own bodies and our own thought capacity. We don't have the manual. So I'm here to say, to the person I insulted, I apologize. And to not cause any more problems, brothers and sisters, I'm going to encourage everybody to please, please, please get that checkup from the neck up. See a mental health therapist, a mental health professional, if you feel like you need it. And sometimes you need to talk to a mental health professional, not even about you. You got to talk to them about some other person who may need assistance. So listen, my brothers and sisters, that's it. That's a shout-out show. I appreciate you. Thank you for taking a listen. It means a lot to me, and this is an important topic. I may joke around a lot, but I'm very, very serious about our mental health and how we get along. All right? So you guys take care of yourself. I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Oh, all right. Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your shout out show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next shout out show. A simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarif Attar. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out tarifattar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.